Wine is a mocker, beer is a brawler, and whoever staggers because of them is not wise. Proverbs 21.
All right, we're back. How was your Easter?
Kind of sucked. From the standpoint of we didn't go to church. Sorry, we're heathens. I know that's like the one holiday a year that you're supposed to go to church. We were all sick. Jackson's sick. Reese is sick. Audrey's sick. I'm sick. I'm the best of the four of us. But Audrey got hit real hard, and then it's Jackson can still sit in service with us. Reese too squirrely at 2 years old. She's just like, Matt, get me out of here for a 45-minute sermon on a Sunday. And we don't feel right sending our kid into children's church and getting everybody else all sick.
Yeah.
Especially on that day where it's like every kid and their mother is going to be in there. So we opted for staying home and went and hung out with my in-laws for a couple hours. And then that was it. That's all we did. So, yeah, that was my Easter. How was yours?
Well, it was actually fairly good. We had the kids over, kids minus two of the grandkids. Two of the grandkids were with their dad down at Disneyland for Easter.
They were more heathens than me.
But we had all the kids
Disney.
And one granddaughter. Well, we didn't have Jeff and Maddie and grandson, but we had everybody else. And it was good. It was actually... I mean, I miss the granddaughters, but having two less, just having one to kind of manage, and she can she's not very wild. She's not needy. Like if she draws attention, it's just from like mom or dad, but it doesn't it's not like a whole taking over the room kind of thing. So it was kind of nice because we could just kind of chat and have a good meal and conversation. So it was good Easter meal. We had a ham and green beans with bacon, and Danica made super potatoes, which is basically, you can do it with hash browns. You can do it with, she takes baking potatoes and boils them to where they're soft. And then you mix it, but you basically take that and you mix it up with like sour cream and cheese, shredded cheese, and then you bake it, and a lot of butter. And then you bake it until it's nice and crispy, and it's a wonderful dish. It's my mom's, well, she didn't invent the recipe, but it's a recipe my mom used when I was a kid, and my parents sent me a bunch of their recipes when she and I got married.
Nice.
And she does a very good job at that. So it was a good meal. We didn't go to church either, but I did watch service on the neighborhood app. And I don't know, I might have thoughts about that later. I don't know if I should. It'll sound like complaining, and I probably shouldn't complain, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where the conversation goes. But yeah. So, did that game just start? There's no way the game just started. It's 8 o'clock.
No,
it
yeah.
started 45 minutes ago.
It's in Anaheim. No, it's second period.
Oh, second period. All right.
Yeah, no, this makes sense. Started at 7 o'clock.
I didn't notice period. I just saw time. Oh, I hate those orange uniforms.
Bring back the green.
Yeah, bring back the teal.
Well,
I guess they can now.
It's hard. It's hard with the Sharks now.
Well, the Sharks and the Kraken. Like, you got 3 like teal
S
and green adjacent teal. So, all right. What else? You got trivia?
I don't have any off the top of my head for the time being. Do you want me to look some up? Extend our time here. We are drinking a beer this evening.
Oh, yeah.
What beer are we drinking, Tim?
Sorry, we are drinking the Pliny the Younger Russian River, the Pliny the Younger 2026 we just had 2 weeks ago on our trip. And we're not drinking each a whole bottle. We're sharing a bottle. And it's fantastic. Enjoying it very much. Unfortunately, we discovered tonight that the last beer we made sucks ass. We're going to have to dump it.
Yep.
But Not before we take some. I need to take a sample and see if I can take it to the more seasoned beer makers to figure out from the taste and smell what we did wrong. Because we cannot. It's really sweet.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, tonight you have 20 things to guess, Tim. Just because I felt like 10 was too easy. What you are going to do, Tim, is you are going to tell me the 20 top movies according to IMDb all time. What are the top 20 movies of all time according to IMDb?
Well, I got to go with Gone with the Wind.
Sorry, this also means that I have to scroll.
Are you on IMDb?
I am on IMDb. That is incorrect. IMDb does not have Gone with the Wind in their top 20 movies.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. Does it have Lord of the Rings, Return of the King?
Yes, Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King is ranked 6, coming in at 9 stars. Came out in 2003. Whew.
Okay.
Feels like a lifetime ago.
Star Wars.
Which one?
New Hope, first one.
No, does not make the top 20.
Okay. Raiders of the Lost Ark.
No, does not make the top 20.
Man, what is their criteria?
Star Wars A New Hope made number 29, by the way. Raiders of the Lost Ark was number 60.
All right. The Godfather.
Godfather is ranked number 2 on the list, coming in at 9.2 stars. Good job. You got 2 of them.
Okay, so then Citizen Kane's going to be on there, probably number 1.
Citizen Kane is not in the top 20.
What? Okay. Whew.
By the way, I know that you've seen all 20 of these movies.
Oh, I have. Okay, that adds to the pressure.
Yeah, there aren't any like where I'd be like, I don't know if you're going to get that one. No, you know these all. I think I've seen all 20 of these movies. So,
all right, let's go with the personal favorite. We'll do Shawshank.
Number 1.
Really?
9.3 stars.
Right, okay.
1994.
All right, well, I did Godfather, so we'll do Godfather 2.
Godfather Part 2 is number 4 on the list from 1974. It's 9 stars. You've skipped over number 3, by the way. It's not related to The Godfather.
Schindler's List.
Schindler's List is number 7. 9 stars, 1993.
Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump is number 12. 8.8 stars, 1994.
The Dark Knight.
Yeah, that's your number 3. The Dark Knight is number 3, 2008. 2 hours, 32 minutes, 9.1 stars.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out what their profile is. Tim's AI is studying the list.
That's right.
Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction is number 9, I believe. Number 9. 8.8 stars. 1994.
She said Star Wars is not on there. New Hope is not on there.
New Hope is not on there.
Well, let's go with Empire Strikes Back.
Empire Strikes Back. That should have been your first guess, if I'm really being honest with you.
It's a better movie, but again, I don't, it's hard to know. Like, I don't know. IMDb is somewhat box office based and somewhat like I'm trying to figure out.
1980, 8.7 stars, coming in at number 15.
Oh, they really like what's his name? So let's go Dark Knight. Is Dark Knight on
You've already
there?
guessed it. That was number 3. You already
guessed
that one. That's why I was like,
so,
I thought you were trying to remember what the name. I thought you were trying to remember Christopher Nolan's name, and I was like, okay, let's hear it.
Inception.
Yep, Inception, number 14, 2010 film.
Interstellar.
Makes the list at number 18, 2014 film. Geez, that's crazy. Those movies are only 4 years apart, and I think The Dark Knight Rises is in between those. Back when Christopher Nolan was just pumping out movies. What the hell?
Back when Hollywood was pumping out movies.
He was just like, I'm going to do it all. I'm still trying to find, what's it called? Still trying to find Gone with the Wind on their.
Oh, they had two
list.
gangster movies. Let's go with the Goodfellas.
Yes, Goodfellas is ranked at number 11, I believe. Hold on, I'm still looking for. Okay, give me a sec. I'll get back to it. Did I say 14? No, that was wrong. That was Inception. Goodfellas is number 17. 1990 film, ranked 8.7 stars.
No, On the Waterfront.
On the Waterfront does not make the list. It doesn't make the top 20 list.
Easy Rider.
No, not on the top 20.
Chinatown.
No, does not make the top 20. Now I gotta look these ones up.
Clockwork Orange.
No, does not make the top 20.
2001.
No, I think that one's like 100 on the list.
I don't think Gandhi's on there.
No, it's not.
Titanic.
Nope. Tip the hat, IMDb.
Huh?
You see it? You were like, oh. You're like, oh, good for IMDb. They didn't put that dumb movie on there. Project Hail Mary made number 80, by the way, on the list.
Already?
Yeah. 8.4 stars.
Nolan saw it the other day.
Yeah, I need to get out and go.
Some older movies.
Did Nolan say he liked it, or?
He did. He said it's a must-see.
Nice. Did he say anything about the twist?
No, he didn't say anything about the plot. He just said it was very, very well done, and he was surprised that Ryan. I think he said he thought he was surprised Ryan Gosling was that
good.
charismatic.
Citizen Kane, by the way, was 114 on the list.
Ooh.
Clockwork Orange is 120.
As it should be. Those are good movies, but It's a Wonderful Life.
Number 21 is It's a Wonderful Life, so it doesn't make the top 20.
Well, I'm going to stay with Henry Fonda and go 12 Angry Men for 1,000. Alex.
Yes, 12 Angry Men, not ranked number 12. Instead, they are ranked number 5.
Wow.
9 stars.
That's a really, really good movie. That'll be my movie of the week suggestion. It's on Prime if you have it. If you have Prime, make sure it's the old one though. There's another one with
1957 doesn't have a typical rating. It's just approved.
It's just approved. Yeah, it's unrated.
Yeah.
Technically, it's unrated, but I don't know how they do that with the older ones. If you watch it, you'll recognize everybody just about everybody in the movie. And then there's a newer one from like 1989 or 92 or something with Scott. I think it's George C. Scott or Ed Asner is the lead character. Anyway, okay, what do I got? Like 2 or 3 left?
You're missing number 10, number 13, number 16, and number 19 and number 20. Do you want any hints?
No.
Okay.
There's got to be. They don't really.
Like I said, I'm 100% positive you've seen all of these movies.
They don't really have. They have 12 Angry Men. That's not really the. There's a movie missing from like the hippie age. Urban Cowboy. Not Urban Cowboy.
Some people call me the Space Cowboy. Wow, wow. Oh, no, it's Maurice. Sorry, my bad. That's when you do the wow, wow.
Wait, which is the one with Travolta? Is that Urban Cowboy? No.
Saturday Night Fever.
Close. This is the movie right after. This is his cowboy movie right after.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail makes 164, by the way. That's a treasure. Bridge on the River Kwai at 178.
What? Oh, see, I didn't remember. That's the one. It was Urban Cowboy. What's the one I'm thinking of?
Gran Torino 192. That's a fantastic movie.
Wait. Midnight Cowboys. Midnight Cowboy on there.
No. Notice that I wasn't paying attention to anything you were saying because I was like, nah, you're on the wrong track. It's not a Travolta movie.
I said Chinatown. There's got to be a Jack Nicklaus movie on there. Shining.
No, Shining was like 25, I think. There's a
Oh, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah, that's number 19. That's your 1975 movie. Dude, Gone with the Wind is not on here. But guess what is? Fucking The Sound of Music. The Big Lebowski, 229.
Gone with the Wind might be off there just for political reasons.
If you weren't a part of the Stand By Me, number 243. I love that movie. If you were not a part of the Pliny the Younger trip, then you don't know that Andy, Eric, and Robert and Tim were tickling each other pink, laughing over quoting the Big Lebowski.
Big Lebowski quotes.
It was funny just watching them go. It was like watching kids quote Shrek. It's so funny.
Unforgiven.
It was like 100 and no, it was like 80. I think it was like 80th on the list. You still don't want any hints? Can I at least tell you that there is an Eastwood film on the list?
Sure.
Okay, there you go. There's an Eastwood film on the list. And it's not Gran Torino. I've seen this Eastwood film and it's not better than Unforgiven and it's not better than Gran Torino. So and it's not Dirty Harry.
I don't know. I wouldn't. Oh, it's not any which way but loose.
Also, didn't know that this movie is 3 hours long.
Oh,
2 hours and 50
not
minutes.
Hang 'em High.
It's not Hang 'em High.
Good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Oh,
Number 10 on the list, by the way. That's the 10th best movie according to IMDb.
I think I got one more guess. I mean, that's about it.
Famous, historic. No, you got to get these 3. Well, I don't know how much you like the third one. Number 20 on the list. I know you've seen it. I just don't know how much you.
I don't. Their list is so like not in line with like
I'll give you
Redbox and
the two of the movies are bro movies. Bro, but think like bro.
Well, one's one's probably based on that list. Fight Club's probably.
Fight Club
there.
is number 13, 1999, 8.8 stars. And you're missing your last 2 movies. Well, number 16 and number 20.
Oh, okay. They went all in with Nolan. So let's go with the first Matrix.
Yeah, The Matrix is number 16.
All right, that's it. I can't think of another one.
Last one's got Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey, and it's on the list. Well, if it was on my list and it was Kevin Spacey, it would be Glengarry Glen Ross, but that's not on there.
I actually gave you the least famous of the actors that star in that film.
LA Confidential.
Uh-uh.
Oh, that's a fantastic movie. That's actually LA Confidential is quietly right up there with Gladiators. Russell Crowe's Gladiators is a little bit better, but that is quietly one of Russell Crowe's best movies. Oh, not American Beauty.
No.
Thank God.
That's crazy. I feel like Cinderella Man is like one of Russell Crowe's.
Oh, I would put that up there too.
That's a great one.
He's in the new Nuremberg movie playing Goering, and he's very good.
Yeah, I think
I can't tell if he's like put on weight or he's just big because he still likes to drink beer quite a bit, and like me, it's caught up with him, or he's just in a fat suit.
Number 20, Kevin Spacey, Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman.
Oh, 7.
What's in the Box?
I think Paltrow's in that. I think it's her first movie or first. Like,
she's Brad Pitt's fiance, wife.
Yeah. I've watched that movie once.
She's What's in the Box.
It's a fantastic movie, but never watching that again.
I remember I was in Colton's social club and that movie was playing on one of the TVs. Yeah. And I was like looking at it.
Like they were playing the whole thing?
Yeah. Like it was on like TNT or something.
Was it Halloween or something?
No.
Because when we were at Silver Stamp for the race last year, they had The Shining on, but the whole place was like decorated for Halloween. It was
it was June.
And it actually added to it. I was like, oh, this is very kitsch. But
it was June. I'm looking up and I'm like, oh, that's a young Brad Pitt. And then I see Morgan Freeman and I was like, yo, I think this is the What's in the Box movie. Because I didn't know what it was called. And then I had to and again, there's no sound on the TV.
That is wild.
it's just playing in the background, and I was like, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
there's no sound, but every 8 minutes, about every 20 minutes, you're shocked to the core by some defiled corpse.
oh, see, I don't think I saw that. I think where they were at in the movie was literally like the tension building part where it's the premise of the movie.
They
had Spacey, yeah. They had Spacey's character in the van. And so it was the drive out in the middle of the desert. The helicopters, watching them go or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Blah, blah. So that was where the movie, that's where I had picked up where the movie's from. Yes, I know that it's the 7 Deadly Sins. He represents.
I just thought of a movie that I would have guessed if I thought about it.
He represents
I'm surprised if that's on there, that Silence of the Lambs is not on there, but whatever.
What is Paltrow's, what does she represent? She represents lust?
No,
I thought he kills another girl earlier and she represents lust. Because his death represents envy, and then Brad Pitt's life in prison represents wrath. I don't remember. Sorry,
this is somewhat adjacent, so we're gonna.
Yeah, sorry if you've never seen 7
characters,
and I'm spoiling all this for you. But I'm literally
at this
looking.
Point, no, this is like this point. Let's see what that comes up with. Oh, that brought up some anime called 7 Deadly Sins.
I've seen that one. And all the characters represent one of the sins.
Okay. The man who's forced to eat is gluttony. Yeah, duh. I think 2 screens would be good for this. 7. My fingers aren't cooperating. Wow. Typing like I'm drunk, and it must have been that beer of ours that I had 5 sips of. It's already. Oh, that's right. It's a Fincher movie. I think it's his first big one. I know this is riveting podcasting, but sorry, folks.
Just have a question that needs to be answered.
I got an itch. Da-da-da-da-da.
Wikipedia has the answers you're looking for, because that's where I learned all this stuff from this movie. I do know that's the truth.
Okay. Gluttony is Bob Mack, who doesn't have a picture on IMDb, so he's just a dude. Greed is Gene Borkin. Don't know who that is.
Oh, so the other chick. So then the chick that dies is Greed. So his wife must represent lust.
Sloth is Michael Reed McKay. Lust is Kat. Oh, Kat Mueller. She was a model. She was like one of those men magazines that were big in the 90s. Pride is Heidi Shantz. Envy is Kevin Spacey, and Wrath it's Brad Pitt. Yeah, they got a bunch of nobodies.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I forgot that Lee Ermey is in there as the police captain. He's the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket. All right, well,
so there you go.
Those are pretty good on the fly.
Yeah, top 20 IMDb movies. Those are them. If you haven't watched any of them, you can go and give them a watch. They're not some of them are critically acclaimed.
Those are all good. They're all good movies, but
they're all good movies. I don't have. If I'm being honest, if somebody were to come up to me and tell me that any of those 20 are their favorite movies, I'd be like, some of them would be a little bit pretentious. Like if you came up to me and you told me 12 Angry Men was your favorite movie, I'd be like, okay, that seems a little pretentious. But if you showed up and you said, if you said Fight Club's your favorite movie, The Empire Strikes Back is your favorite movie, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. All right. I get it. Those are good movies. Those are and that's what I would say about a lot of them is that they're just they're good movies. Some of them are really great movies. If somebody came up and said Interstellar is my favorite movie, Inception is my favorite movie, The Dark Knight's my favorite movie, Godfather, The Matrix even, I think that those are all fair answers. If somebody came up to me and told me that 7 is their favorite movie, I might be a little concerned. Be like, all right. But, yeah, I get it. Pulp Fiction, I've heard lots of people say that's their favorite movie. Again, it seems more like a top 20 favorites more than a greatest
I think
movies
it's a
of all
good
time,
mix of. I think it's a good mix of
well done.
popular and it's not. It's a good blend of popular and film school
Yeah, I agree.
grading. I mean, that's the problem most people have with the movie Academy of the Arts or whatever in their top 100. It's like there's a lot of movies in there people have never heard of before. So, which might just mean you need to watch more movies or increase your movie palette.
Well, we have the 7 deadly sins. Now we have the 8th deadly sin, which is drinking a head house beer.
Ducks are getting crushed.
I know. Number 1 seed in the Pacific, getting crushed. But the Preds have been on a tear. They were like last place in their division. And they came back. And now they're in a playoff spot now.
Predators should always be good. Because their arena is in one of the best spots in the planet. It's like
Downtown,
2 blocks
it's
south
literally
of
right next to the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's right by the Country Music Hall of. It's across the street from the Country Music Hall of Fame and like 2 blocks away from Broadway. I mean, that should just be a party every night.
And yet they can't get anybody to go to their games.
Well, that's Nashville. Nashville's just got too much stuff going on. All right. We just finished our Christianese series. So even though this is Easter, I don't know, you're going to be hearing this in like 3 or 4 weeks after Easter. We're going to spend a few minutes, though, delving back into one of our favorite topics. And it's
shitting on the church.
It's Easter. It's
the cleanse.
Shitting on Church Inc. Even though it's going to be Easter centered, it's not really about Easter. It's again about how broken the church is. I would love to get this guy Nathan. I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. It starts with an A. It's Nathan Abfell or something. He's done a whole documentary series on church business.
Yeah,
and like he'll go to these churches that are outrageous and try to get answers from the pastor. I just saw a debate he did with a young guy who was starting a church, and this guy, he was being too defensive of the church. Like when they were talking about one of the big things Nathan has a problem with are church bylaws, and I can say as someone who's written church bylaws, that's where the hidden power is, right there. It's whether or not there's dispersed power within the church, and it's a secret ingredient. If you have too much, then everyone in the church just runs the church. But if you, like a lot of churches, if it's just the pastor, then you're just opening yourself up for embezzlement's the biggest problem, or just legal enrichment to the pastor and his family. But Nathan was just on Tucker Carlson because they were talking about the pastor who is Trump's spiritual advisor and her crazy church. And then they also spent some time talking about Franklin Graham because he was also praying over over Trump on Thursday or Friday before Easter, and how ridiculous Samaritan's Purse is. It's just a money-making machine. There's nothing very helpful about it at all. But I won't go into those details. But he did talk about there's a massive church in Houston. It's well over 100 years old. It's called Second Baptist. It has 98,000 people on their membership list. And like 3 years ago, they hired an attorney from Dallas. The head pastor hired an attorney from Dallas, and they somehow, I don't know how this happened. Well, there's a lawsuit going on. The church, the members are suing the church, which is just, that tells you everything that's wrong with the church. But I understand why they are. The pastoral staff, the head pastor and the staff, well, his 5 other guys who are teaching pastors, got it to where they somehow rewrote the bylaws to where the members had no voting membership anymore, and the church was solely run by the staff in terms of oversight and everything. That's insane.
I mean, that's how a company works. I mean,
But that's the problem. It shouldn't be run that way.
I mean,
Well, I don't want to get bogged down on this, but and then the pastor, the lady who runs that church, who's Trump's advisor, her church, their bylaws are actually confidential, and the members aren't allowed to even see the bylaws. So that's a problem. So, I mean, I don't think that, if you're the average person who's going to church shouldn't be spending their time like reading bylaws and all that kind of nonsense. But again, if there's a lot of the accountability is there, and it's anyway, that's a whole thing. But there was an article I was actually posted before. I don't know, I was posted before. Who said it? Anyway, there's an article on Christianity Today, and it's titled, Churches Try Drones and Skydiving Bunnies for Easter Outreach. I'm going to read parts of it. As Americans open their wallets to spend a projected $25 billion on Easter this year, that's crazy. That's a waste of money. Some churches are thinking beyond Easter eggs and passion plays, budgeting for helicopter rentals, skydiving, Easter bunnies, and record-setting drone shows. Many churches see Holy Week as an opportunity for community outreach. In some cases, the bigger the better. Church leaders say they hope the spring-themed fun will serve the community, glorify God, and attract new Easter weekend visitors to worship. Compass Church in Monterey County, California, hosted its Easter egg drop at a local sports complex on March 28. A helicopter dropped 100,000 eggs on Rabobank Stadium in 2 separate egg drops, and the event also included a skydiving Easter bunny. At Cultivate Church in Alabaster, Alabama, leaders expect their April 4 church outreach to draw nearly 20,000 people. That's fine. Helicopter will drop 20,000 eggs in 3 cycles for children of various ages, while church members grill thousands of hot dogs to give away. All right, that's fine. Whatever. I mean, I don't think you're advancing the mission and vision of the church, but whatever.
The senior pastor at our old church was a sucker for a donut day. That guy looked for any chance at all. He'd be like, "Can we celebrate with donuts on Sunday? Like,
Yeah.
Can we get like donuts for the whole?"
River Community Church in Cookeville, Tennessee will be the site of another big event, an Easter drone show sponsored by the local Christian radio station. Yeah, that's the problem right there. 107.7 Grace FM, heart of Nashville, Tennessee. The church's property includes a 100-foot white cross visible from nearby Interstate 40. And on Good Friday, hundreds of illuminated drones will soar above the cross, creating a visual display that tells the story of the resurrection. Viewers can turn in to Grace FM to hear narration accompanying the lights. The events will conclude with a fireworks display. In a message on Facebook, Steve Tybout, lead pastor of the River Community Church, said over 20 area churches had combined together to put on the event. He urged congregants to invite unchurched friends to join in watching the drone show and to tell them about God's work. You know what? I don't know a damn thing about you and your Jesus person, but you guys put on one hell of a drone show. Bring people that never will go to church. This will be something they'll want to see, and then you can have those conversations afterwards to share with them what Christ has done in your life. Okay. Let's play a game of jumping to conclusions. In Manville, Texas, the church on Masters Road. Oh, wow. What a pretentious name. That's such a Texas name. Manville, Texas, the church on capital M Masters Road has led to a coalition of churches in putting together another drone light show telling the Easter story. Beginning on March 27, the nightly gatherings have drawn between 6,000 and 10,000 people per day, featuring a rotation of worship leaders and speakers. The evening ends with a narrated drone display telling the story of each day in the Holy Week. Each night show is bigger, starting with 5,000 drones. By Easter evening, the display will have 10,000 drones. Lee, who's the pastor of the church on Masters Road, Lee said getting visitors to attend the church on Masters Road is not even an objective of the event. He said if visitors want to learn more about local churches, they can scan a QR code to find a church list. It's not about the church and making one church more important than other churches. We want to make it about Jesus and getting people excited about Easter season and going to church somewhere. All right. Oh, this is great. All right. We're getting to the end. Lee challenged members to rack up 10,000 cumulative miles of walking on the field. Oh, the field where this is at. To pray for the event. One lap around the perimeter of the property is about a mile. Good Lord. And as of March 31st, participants had walked 4,500 miles. That's a lot of prayer. Visitors could also stop by the testimony tent to record stories of God's faithfulness in their lives. All right. Quote, we defeat the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the word of the testimony, Lee said in a video posted to Facebook. Matthews of Cultivate Church said when the community sees congregations serving its neighbors, that's not really what you're doing. That's not serving your neighbors. It makes those neighbors curious about church. We have found that these events make it attractive for people to want to know more. As long as we are pointing them to Jesus when they want to know more, then we see life change out of it. Folks, I can tell you 100% that's all nonsense. That is called groupthink. And that is somebody about 15, 20 years ago paid for a study that then verified what they wanted to think, which was if I spend a whole bunch of money on Easter, it's going to attract people. And then it's just led to 20 years of people just trying to one up each other on Easter, to where it's a passion play of idolatry at this point. If I'm being honest, in a lot of these circles, I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Okay, so I have a couple of thoughts. I think first off, okay, let's talk about like the events themselves. I'll start with that, and then I'll move into bigger picture discussion after. So the stuff themselves, like, all right, like, okay, so some of them are not terrible. Some of you are like, well, what's wrong with that? Like, let's talk about like the walking a mile kind of thing.
That's fun. I was having fun with it, but there's nothing wrong with that.
No, that's fine. But actually, I think that this is important because I have a student. I mean, I've talked about her before. She's Malakan, Russian Orthodox. Again, they don't celebrate Easter. They have their own holidays kind of thing. Not that they don't acknowledge Jesus as the risen Christ, but they don't follow the Protestant Catholic. They don't follow the Catholic holidays. Yeah, they have a different set of holidays that they follow. But she is currently in the midst of a holiday currently because it doesn't follow around a lunar cycle like Easter does. And she's having to fast for it. Right. And so, like, for those of you that are unaware of fasting, because fasting could be one of our Christianese words. It's a Christianese word that I don't feel like needs a ton of explaining, where it was like it's worth an episode or whatever. But fasting simply means that you give up something. 9 times out of 10, it means food. And with that giving up of whatever, you are acknowledging God during that time. So like if you are fasting from meals, and that means that during that time that you would be eating, you are recognizing God's authority in your life. And so you're supposed to spend that time in prayer. So I mean, that kind of stuff. And a lot of common tradition and belief is that God gives you the nutrients to which you need. I mean, again, that's kind of more tapping into that spiritual side that is very difficult for me to get in touch with. So
that's probably one we could spend an episode on.
I think you could.
Churchanese.
Well, I mean,
Because
I don't know.
Jesus did it, and I mean, I've never done it, and that's one of those things I've thought about every once in a while. Like, I should probably do a fast, not like a health fast, but like a
An
spiritual
intermittent
fast.
And so she comes up and she's asking about it. Well, mainly because her boyfriend is giving her grief. There was something that happened, and she was just like, I don't remember what happened, but she was like, "Oh, I'm fasting." And her boyfriend was like, "Oh, you shouldn't tell people that you're fasting." And he got very upset with her and very short with her on the fact that she was telling people that she was fasting, and all she was telling was him. And she was like, "Is he right to be upset with me?" And I was like, "I don't know what he's on about. I know what he's on about, but like, I don't know what he's on about." Like, I was like, I don't know how to help you in your relationship issue here. Like, all I can tell you is I know what he's talking about, but like, that's stretching it. You guys are fasting for your holiday. Like everybody has to do it. Like, I don't, I was like, I've never heard of this before. But so fasting is one of those things that it is accepted to do for holidays in reverence, but that's something that's traditional. It's not something that's asked of people in the scriptures. And when we find people fasting in the scriptures outside of the holiday context, it's for mourning. It's for, to draw closer to God themselves, not within the context of a holiday or whatever.
Yeah, you can do it for like spiritual clarity,
and it's oftentimes 9 times out of 10 it's not communal. So it's not like, all right,
Yeah,
all of
no.
us are going to fast, this kind of thing. There are occasions where that does happen, but 9 times out of 10, if something's communal, it's actually they're sharing meals together, and that's where things happen. It kind of goes by the wayside. There's no like biblical laws that sit there and say that you need to fast or whatever. There's this idea that you become more connected spiritually. That's something that exists in multiple different cultures and beliefs. Hindus obviously believe that. If you haven't heard about Gandhi's fasts, those are crazy fasts. You can look those up. Basically, the entire nation was willing to give up war. The whole nation of India was able to give up war just because some old guy was fasting.
Yeah.
That lets you know how much that guy meant to those people. Buddhists believe in fasting, and they believe that that's, transcending, not. And again, it's very strange almost that there. And I'm not saying it's just it's not something that's unique to Christian tradition, but it's very weird that in so many cultures, fasting is often associated with some sort of spiritual connection.
Well, I would say, sticking with that, it's also curious.
It's worth of note, is what I would say.
Yeah, it's also curious that fasting is one of the maybe few things. It's one of the things that is truly ecumenical within the church. So everywhere from Ethiopian Christians to Pentecostals.
It's pretty fucked up that you brought up Ethiopia first.
Well, I mean, because
they're not fasting by choice all the time. Tim, you asshole.
That was 40 years ago. Get over it already. As probably the most right wing or extreme conservative part of the
that
church.
had the least amount of food. You're just like, yeah. So they're fasting over there.
As the part of the church that claims to be the closest to the New Testament, and then all the way to the most extreme part of the Protestant church, like Pentecostals. All throughout that, you have a tradition of fasting, and then it's interspersed, so not all parts of like I said, I've never fasted. My grandparents on my mom's side fasted all the time. It was a regular thing. I mean, not like it was like a probably yearly thing where my grandmother would fast for like a week because she was focusing on reading a scripture or just prayer, and then my parents have done it from time to time. So and it's interesting because even though it is very ecumenical, which that means, what does ecumenical mean? How would I give the definition? Basically, ecumenical is open to both Protestant within the Christian standpoint. It's across both Protestant and Catholic and Eastern Orthodox divisions. Even though it is that way, I would say most of the across the spectrum, I would say it's been quite a long time since I've heard a pastor talk about fasting, let alone encouraging it. So, and maybe it's just because it's one of those things you don't talk about from
It's
the
a little
pulpit.
taboo.
I would say it's probably something you don't want to talk about at the pulpit to encourage people because
I don't think so. I agree. I appreciate that a lot of pastors have what you're talking about right now, where they have a little bit of restraint when bringing it up. I think that it's something where it's like, I think that I hope that pastors, the reason why they don't bring it up is because they don't have, they recognize the power and what it is that they would be saying, asking people not
Correct.
to do that. Like,
and there's a proper way to do it. Like if you fast, you don't talk about it. Like you don't go around saying,
you're
"Oh,
not supposed to talk about
I'm
it.
fasting. Oh, I'm fasting." Like no, then it just becomes prideful.
Yeah,
It's like
again,
something
you're
you
not
do
supposed to draw
quietly.
attention to yourself, and so that's like, so when
I mean, obviously, if your family's going to know about it. If your friend pops in, you're going to be like, "No, I'm only drinking water and I'm fasting." Like, it's not like you can't talk about it, but you also don't talk about it. Like,
Right.
it's not your
right,
sharing it with
it's
people
not
on
for you to draw
Facebook.
attention to yourself. It's meant for you to, yeah. And I mean, like, even if you're just drinking water and you're just like, no, I'm good, because it's supposed to be centered around Christ. But I mean, that's how our faith is supposed to be, besides just fasting, right? Like, that's the whole idea of the couple that just drops dead when they lie about how much they've given the church or whatever.
Oh yeah,
To Peter's face or whatever. That's that whole kind of concept where it's like, again, we're not, or the guys that are just like handing out money, and you had the woman who just gives her 2 cents or whatever, and Jesus talks about how she gave more than they did, and that kind of stuff. It's the idea of, you're not really supposed to be out here just showing your spirituality or whatever in that context. You should be showing it in other ways.
So
anyways, so for that, like we're talking about fasting. We're talking about doing things like walking a mile. Like, some people do. I remember in high school, Brandon used to do, he would just invite people to come on Wednesdays during the summers and do prayer walks. And you just walk around Live Oak Park by yourself and you just pray. Prayer. Eric York would walk for 4 hours all by himself, just praying one single prayer. I mean, you're just like, golly, that guy. Yeah, you learned real quick that you never wanted that guy to ever pray for your meal. You were never going to eat. And that became a running joke with us, because there was one. And okay, so this all stemmed from, if you listen to this and you know who Eric York is, or you don't know who Eric York is, Eric York was my leader for a little while. I think I talked about him a couple episodes ago.
you talking about him last weekend?
Yeah,
last week I think.
I love that guy to death. But there was one specific leadership Sunday where we were all meeting together, and we all had and like, we were opening it up to prayer, whatever. Brandon opens it up to prayer. Eric's going to be leading the group, and it was part of that transition period of him taking over for Brandon. And he prays for probably 25 straight minutes. And like, Brandon, and so from that moment on, just everybody Brandon just let him have it. Like, anytime he's like, "Oh yeah, we can't let Eric pray. Eric, keep it short," or whatever. And so everybody just lays into Eric for it. But I will say that is one of his spiritual gifts. I do think that prayer, they talk about, is one of those spiritual gifts. And I mean, that could be a Christianese podcast all in itself about spiritual gifts.
Yeah, there's a good one.
It is. He does have a beautiful gift of prayer. He knows what he's talking about, or like, there seems like there's a connection there where he feels connected, and when he prays, and some of you know that, like, I could get up and I could give a prayer on a Sunday morning and people would be like, that was a good prayer. But that's because I know what to say. I know, like, all this, like, whatever. I mean, be like, that was good. And sure, I got it. Eric's seems more genuine than mine would sound. Mine would almost be kind of like, it's not rehearsed, but it's just like, all right, check, box check, box check. But Eric's seems very personal, very meaningful in those moments of things like, I'm going to pray over this meal, I'm going to pray over this, or I'm going to pray over that. It's a gift. It's not.
I
something
don't have the gift.
else.
I'm not a good.
I'm not. Again,
every time I pray publicly, I'm like, that was terrible.
So, and I don't like public prayer. I think I've discussed this on the show before. I'm not a public prayer person, because I spend all that time trying to think in my brain about how to make whatever I say sound like the best. Like, that's like, and that's sick and that's twisted. and therefore I just believe that I shouldn't say anything at all. I know that, but it comes from that anxiety of just like, all right, they're going to be coming to me. I want to make sure that I sound good. I want to make sure that I sound like I need to sound or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it's even worse when you're on a stage, by the way, because then it's like, okay, it's almost performative. Like prayer becomes performative.
I think it's fair to say it's like half pride, half.
Oh yeah.
I've been given a big responsibility and I don't want to screw it up.
Yeah.
But I think.
But I also want to sound.
I think it's unfair
yeah.
to say like it's all pride and it's also all. I want to make sure like it's a mix of both. It's like I don't want to.
It's a little anxiety, a little bit of pride.
Otherwise, it's just like Lord, speak through me, and then just let it rip. Of course, with us, we'd be dropping F-bombs.
Yeah, exactly.
We'd be giving the Donald Trump Easter Truth Socials.
Yeah, I'd get up there on a Sunday morning and be like, God, please fucking help me. Be like, and then on the microphone, just be like, shit. Nah, well, amen. Yeah, so when it comes to those things, right? The fasting, the prayer walks, there's a couple of them where it's like feeding people at church. Like, right, all right, we're all going to buy donuts for them or whatever. They bought them hot dogs and whatnot or whatever. The hard part is like, all right, if we were to like put it on a scale and we're like, all right, on one side you have the prayer walk one. Okay, the prayer walk with the tent where they could give their testimonial or whatever. I was like, you're talking about this. I was like, bro, this is something the neighborhood would do. They'd be like, all right, we're going to do a prayer thing where it's like people are going to be, and a bunch of soccer moms would come out and they put out a testimonial tent and they'll be like, all right, here you go. And Jordan be in there running the camera and just be like, all right, here's your chance, blah, 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 give your yada, yada. And I'd be like, God is so good to me. Ever since I graduated high school, I found a husband. He makes $200,000 a year. My life is just so great. Sorry. Neighborhood is soccer mom central. Like that's what it is. I'm upper middle class. I know what I'm a part of.
You know what you're about.
I know where I'm at. I know what's going on. So if you don't make fun of yourself, we got a full on coffee shop that runs 7 days a week. As a part of
a Starbucks.
As a part of our.
I mean, this place.
It's not like we set up coffee in the morning. No, it's a full functioning.
It seats like 30.
Yeah. So there you go. Let that kind of sink into the kind of church that I go to now. It's not It's not Folgers. So anyways, so you have this prayer walk thing, which doesn't cost the church any money at all.
No, I'll let you finish.
Well, I mean, it costs some resources.
Keep going.
Well, it costs resources and like people got to set it up. We got to do whatever. Okay. But again, the question is what are we effectively doing?
Well, I would ask, what are we praying? What are we praying for and about?
Sure, 100%. But if they were like, this is your time, like yada yada. Anyways, then you have the feeding people one. Now, neighborhood does this shit all the time.
I don't have a problem with feeding people. I mean, that's.
But how much does it cost to feed? That's a good question.
It is a good. I guess so. I guess you're right. I mean, a lot. So much of this is.
And here's the question.
So much of this is.
Well, this is gonna get to my.
This is MBA, Masters in Business Administration, seeping in from corporate America into church.
Well,
and so it's like, well, we do donuts we do a conference. We do donuts and stuff in between.
Yeah, so we do donuts. So we do donuts. Okay, let's go back to TFBC. That's a better. Okay, so we do donuts for 300 people on a Sunday morning. How much does it cost for all those donuts?
Well, you're probably buying 300 donuts, and they cut them up, didn't they?
No, they buy a donut per.
Oh, they're probably buying 300 plus another 3-4 dozen just for spillage or something.
Yeah.
Or for whoever wants to have a second one, not feel like, yeah. And then there was always fruit too, because we got to pretend we're healthy.
Yeah, exactly. so that's 8 times 300. Like, let's say back then it was $8 for a dozen donuts. I know what it is now. You're like, holy fuck.
I'd say 10.
It's $20 for a dozen donuts. Yeah. So $3,000 to feed everybody to feed everybody a donut, which, if we're being honest, I was like, you say you don't mind the food. Sure. Would your Sunday have been any different if they didn't give you a
No,
fucking donut?
I mean, that's fair. I'm saying
No, yeah, no,
I'm thinking after saying I don't have a problem with it. If I'm gonna have a problem, well, okay. I've been meaning to say this. Everyone needs to understand when Colton and I are talking about these things, there's always tension in everything. You can't be extreme about a lot of things. It's just trying to find the.
You just wanted the fruit. That's
It's
what it was.
just
Like,
yeah.
you're like, fuck that.
If they'd
fuck
done the donuts without the fruit, that was just unnecessary. So, as I said, I don't have a problem with it. And then as soon as I said it, and then you also chimed in, wait, I thought, no, that's just straight up. Again, that's just straight up MBA business conference thinking that seeped into the church. And so, which is really no different than a lot of the stuff we're going to get into on the very obvious part, which we can mock. But
yeah. Well, and so, okay. Yeah. And then we get to the obvious stuff. So now we get to the, now we get to the drones, and we get to the Easter eggs poured out over a stadium and yada yada. And actually, I'd actually like to make it more personal. I want to get rid of that whole debacle. I want to go with one that didn't even cost money, but again, it's kind of that same kind of process. And this was eliminated underneath Tim's tutelage at the church. Was the trunk or treat or the harvest festival. So this is a big event for Tulare kids, Tulare church-going kids. Brought in hundreds of kids.
my daughter-in-law and son bring their daughter there,
And
from
hardly-
Visalia, from
and-
town over.
Hardly any money was spent on the harvest festival at TFBC because it was all donated candy. It was all donated candy. It was all volunteers. All the games and stuff was all made up, like with ramshackle shit that people had donated and like done or whatever. And they were just like, all right, we just keep it in a storage spot and then we bring it out every Autumn's Kids Fest. It was a shit ton of stress for the children's director at the time.
It was.
And it was a huge undertaking. I mean, I'm not sitting there and saying that it's not.
But it was also a huge success.
Yeah, but it also brought in hundreds. But previous pastor at the time said, we're getting rid of it because it doesn't put people in our seats. So same thing as the flyover Easter egg dump. Same thing as the drones. You know, it's not really like we're not promoting a church or whatever. They can scan a QR code or whatever, but it's not putting butts in our seats.
Well, that's on the other side of that. At least I would say I'll defend the trunk or treat thing, which they have restarted. And
they have?
They did restart it, and this last
but they did
October,
They did trunk or treat.
They did trunk or treat. They didn't do the.
They're
fall
not doing
thing.
the whole. So,
but the trunk or treat thing, they had like the claim was like 5,000 kids went through that thing.
Oof.
I don't have a problem with that because people are donating, and I think in this day and age, particularly depending on the neighborhood you live in. My neighborhood, I don't have to worry about this, which is why I don't do trunk or treat. I try to bring that vibe to my neighborhood and my house to where now I have people coming to my house. Because, yes, I live in a nice suburban neighborhood. I don't have to worry about crime and people driving quick, fast, and all that. If you don't live in that neighborhood, or you even live in a suburban neighborhood, but like you live in one of those neighborhoods where everyone's got everything like decorated like it's Freddy Krueger, I think it's a nice, safe environment for just take your kids. You don't have to worry about traffic. You don't have to worry, all that kind of stuff. I think are you bringing people to Christ? No, but I think it's one of those things that,
I
think young families appreciate, and is it bringing them to Christ? Maybe not. Maybe 1 out of 100, 1,000.
Well, and our previous pastor asked, well, aren't they doing that at the schools? Aren't there kids festivals and fall festivals at all the schools? I mean, yeah, is there not? Is there
There's
not?
one at yes, there's one at
Alpine.
my
I
little
know
school.
Con had a big one. I used to volunteer at that one. Where you're just like, all right, these are things that are already being put on elsewhere. But there was this idea that we need to do one at the church. And I mean, like, listen, my biggest issue with the whole church thing is there's this idea around children's pastors, and that needs to stop. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, but I like that, I'd be like, no, you need to. The holiday expectancy for children's pastors to be like, oh, we need to make sure that they do something for autumn. They need to do VBS in the summer. They need to do a child's pageant in December, or a Christmas pageant in December. They need to do this in the spring or whatever.
It's very much our former church 20 years ago, 25 years ago.
I was like, what they need to do best is they need to make sure that they are creating a safe environment for kids to be able to go in on a Sunday morning and be able to learn about Jesus with volunteers that are safe and appropriate, and then possibly provide something midweek for them. And then they need to own VBS, because that is an undertaking and a half. When you are asking them to do when it comes to event planning and event coordinating, that's one of the hardest things. And especially when you're dealing with TFBC in our hometown currently still has one of the biggest VBSs in the area, hitting 700 kids is fucking wild.
Yeah.
For you to put something on to be like, oh, and I got to entertain kids. I got to entertain kindergartners through fifth graders from 5 p.m. until 7 p.m. I got to entertain them for 2 hours for an entire week and plan out crafts. I got to do it. And even if you get the curriculum, you get all the stuff, like there's so much planning, the amount of volunteers that it takes to coordinate and get all that stuff done. People do not recognize how tough that job is and how straining that is on an individual. But that being said, I mean, listen, we all have jobs that have everybody has jobs that has difficulties and things like that. I'm not saying that, but to sit there, but churches, what I'm saying is that there are churches that are just like, oh yeah. And then on top of that, do you mind throwing a carnival for 1,000 children in 2 months from now? And then we'll see.
Yeah, we all have jobs where we're asked to do things, but we also have job description. And then, if you're not given the resources to,
right,
which includes the manpower to complete it, then you're working at a bad business.
Right.
At a church, when you're a children's pastor, 80%, 90%, 95% of what you do is based on finding and then not overworking volunteers.
That was what was breaking our previous children.
Yeah, if you get too big with VBS, you end up just like breaking the whole thing, because people start feeling guilty because it's our big event. And then it's like, well, we're going to go on vacation because we have other things going on later in the summer. And so we're going to go early in the summer. Well, you're not going to participate in VBS. No, we're going to be out of town.
And our children's pastor before, she was type A. She could rub people the wrong way, but she was type A, but she was really, really good at the event coordinating stuff. She was really good at that. But she was not a saleswoman. And when you get that big, you almost have to be a saleswoman, where you have to buy, like you have to not give a fuck about 100 people saying no. And you just got to go for the one yes and just be like, yep. And then and I know that it seems sick to just be like, I'm going to use it and abuse it until you finally tell me no. Because I'm expected to have this Autumn's Kids Fest with 1,000 kids that all need to be entertained for a couple of hours. Because if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it right. That's fucking tough. For me personally, I'm an extrovert, and I could never be a salesperson. I don't want to talk to people that don't want to talk to me. That's not introversion. That's literally just like, I have social cues that I'm just like, all right, like, you're putting up walls. I'm not really trying to breach them. I'm just like, all right, whatever, we'll come back to this at a later date or whatever. If you're in these positions, you legitimately have to be like, we're going to talk either way because I need volunteers. mean, this is how, and
Well, because I would say from when I started going there around 2004 through probably, let's just say 2012. That might be a little too far out, but there was a while there where the children's pastor was in charge of doing all the big events you're talking about. Easter, VBS,
Prince pageant.
Christmas pageant, the big boxcar rally thing,
Oh yeah, forgot about
which
that.
was tied to not only doing Sunday school, but also having a vibrant Wednesday program.
Yes.
That is too much, not only to ask of her, but all of the people who volunteer. And here's the tricky part, because in most churches, again, churches reflect America. And there are some things in America that we actually think are really great, but when you start having to apply them to like church, it's a problem. America has a problem where our old people like to be retired, and that includes a church. So the people who have the most time to spend, and arguably particularly in the case of grandmothers, well, I would say even grandfathers, are old enough and have been around children enough to put up with nonsense more so than people who have kids in the house. They don't want to volunteer.
But they have the biggest opinions.
But they have the big. But so you're relying on people who already have kids. They're already in charge of school. Kids are probably in one sport on average. That's average. So other kids are in 2 or 3. You're then on top of them, having them to do this, and it just leads to. You're like, well, they should be. You should be involved in your church. Look, don't confuse being involved in your church with being programmed all the time. And meaning, I don't mean like your brain's programmed. I mean, you are on a program schedule where you're doing this and this and this, and all you're doing is quote unquote serving, but really you're just a babysitter for something.
Yep. Well,
and so at some point you got to pick like what matters. So
when I bring this up, and why I bring this one particularly up, is because, again, even if you're sitting there and you're like, all right, we're not spending any resources, but it's like, okay, is this achieving the overall goal of what you set out to achieve? You're expending your staff, you're expending whatever, where it's like, okay, is this something that you are hoping to, what are you trying to accomplish with this? And I think across the board, whether you looked at the walk, the donuts, or you look at these more extravagant ordeals where you bring in thousands of people, is this fulfilling the mission and vision of Jesus Christ? And I think what we're going to find is that ultimately at the end of the day, when you put it on those scales that I talked about, you're dropping a dime in when you could get so much more worth out of your dollar, out of your time, out of whatever, doing this other. And I get like that whole idea where it's like, we need a break. Like, we can't just all sit here and just be like, all right, we're just going to go and feed the homeless every single Sunday or whatever. But it's this idea of where our resources and what it is that we're doing is determining when you show up. And this is where I eventually wanted to leave with this conversation, is when you show up for those things, you are proving that is the priority. You are proving that therefore works, and therefore it will continue to happen. So what I would make this in the analogy of is, I would say that, remember how it's a discussion that people are like, should you advertise unhealthy food on children's television, or advertising unhealthy whatever on children's television, or toys or whatever? Should marketing that's geared towards children be outlawed for unhealthy things or whatever? And that was a discussion for a long time, and it's still a discussion to this day. Should advertisers be able to do that? And the pushback for all this time has always been from those things. Well, it's like, well, it's up to ultimately the parents to sit there and be able to say no, and sit there and say, no, this is not what I want for my children. This is not what I want for blah. And it's the same thing for us as an adult. When you sit there and you see that DoorDash commercials come on, it's like, So if you sit there and think that your children are being manipulated, you yourself are being manipulated at home. Notice that DoorDash, pizza commercials, McDonald's, all those commercials seem to come around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Why is it that, certain commercials only exist on certain channels? Certain ones come on at particularly different times. They've done demographic studies enough to know that it's only men that are sitting there watching TV at 1 a.m. And so therefore they can give you erectile dysfunction, or they can give you performance enhancing things after 1 p.m. or 1 a.m. I should say. That's what I was meaning. Those types of commercials after 1 a.m. And it's because they're targeting you, and they are trying, and you can sit there and say, oh, I don't need this. I don't want this, blah, blah. I'm not susceptible. Okay. Now, our churches are the same way. They are marketing to you. That's what they're doing. That's ultimately what this is. What Tim talked about, where it's like, he's like, this does seem like it's out of some NBA cook. And I'm like, yeah, it's literally a marketing.
Yeah,
how do I
100%.
get you into a seat? How do I get you a part of my program to where even when we sit there and we say the Autumn's Kids Fest, which was this thing where we had thousands of kids, or this trunk or treat now, or whatever, it's a safe space, but that makes somebody from Visalia sit there and go, man, that was a good, and where they can walk away from that church setting and sit there and say, I went to a church, it was a positive environment. And to where if I'm ever sitting there thinking about, oh man, I wonder if I should join a church, and I sit there and I say, you know what? They put on a safe environment for my kids. I bet my kids would have a good, safe place where they could go on a Sunday morning, so I could go and I could try it there. And that may happen 1 out of 500 or whatever, but that's the idea behind it. It's that whole marketing scheme to where it's like, all right, how do we get people in the door?
It's the one American sheep out of 100.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
one American lost sheep.
Yeah, exactly. It's an American lost sheep. That's what it is. You have been marketed to.
Taking Jesus's parable and applying capitalism to it.
Oh, well, and then let's strip away the fucking events, and now let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's get down to the whole, the worship service, the band that's presented to you, whether they sing, whether they don't sing.
I'll give you one. Altar calls. You know why a lot of churches do altar calls? Because they use that as a metrics.
Yeah.
As to whether or not they're being successful on a Sunday, which is completely useless, because I don't have a problem with altar calls. What I have a problem with is monitoring those, because you telling me you had 5 on the first Sunday of April and you had 2 the next Sunday and then the 15 after that, all that is going to do is then you start is the dog wagging the tail of, all right, what did we do on that day in order to do it, when it should just be, no, we had 15 that day. Because one, you don't know if the 2 on the day you had 2 were genuine and life-changing, and I'm sorry. On the other days, you had altar calls, and people, I don't think in the moment were disingenuous, but they didn't end up being genuine, like life-changing altar calls. But a lot of churches use things like that in order to show to themselves and the staff and the church, and then to other churches when they're at a conference, to say, this is how we know we're successful. And all they're using are business school application to apply to the gospel, and that doesn't work.
Yeah, well, and again, so not only altar calls, like you're talking about altar calls, hopefully you guys have all been in a church that is trying to get you plugged in. And mainly I say hopefully you are, because that's
the reason.
Really, at least you know what I'm talking about. Like, it's this whole idea where it's like, okay, why do we have greeters at the front? Oh, because they make you feel welcomed. That seems like the most basic reason, I'm sure. But actually, if we were to look at the statistics, and when you have people that actually come in and do church analysis and church statistics, they'll tell you that a certain percentage of people are more likely to actually stay in the church setting with having greeters up at the front. Also, what is more, and then from there, what jumps your percentage? Oh, it's actually going back to in the back, we have a gift for you. This is something that, we have something where it's like, okay, we want you to come in, check in. Now you have a name associated with the place. And for some of you, some of you may be listening to this right now, and you're like, What are you talking about, Colton? No. That was genuine. That's what they wanted. No, that's literally a plug to get you to come back. And then the more likely you are to come back, then the more likely you are to give.
It's the same swag that you get when you go to a business conference and you have 20 vendors who hand stuff out to you, and 99% of it ends up in a drawer and never used again because you have 15 USB drives now these days.
Yeah.
Or you're like, or the one, but still, it doesn't really lead you to buy the product or go to the place. Now, I will say,
neighborhood church for giving out pint glasses.
I do sort of.
They know their clientele.
Yeah, exactly. They just for Tim and Colton, they created 4 pint glasses.
But you know this better than anybody else. Okay, pint glasses are for who?
They're for men.
Oh, and why do we want men to come in and shake the hands?
Because if the man goes to church, and I don't actually think these are. I don't know that I agree with these statistics like to the number, but I think they're generally. I do think there's a genuine. They're generally correct. If the man goes to church, it's like 75. It's 70 and above. It's not like 90, but it's like, let's say 70 to 80% likely that the whole family goes to church. If the mom is the reason for going to church, that number drops to like, I want to say 40 to 50%. Sorry, I used to know these numbers, but it's been a while. And then if you're only going because of the kids, it like drops to 20%. Because what happens is, it's very easy to just drop your kids off at church and you don't go, or grandma and grandpa go, and so they take the kids, which is sometimes the thing in my family. And so, yeah, so if you're at a very attuned to business, church business models, understand that what is going on is geared towards you, including the music. You might have noticed recently that there are less female singers singing in the worship group and there's more men. That's probably not, sorry, I hate to break it to you. That's not just coincidence. It's probably they determined that they want more men so that men feel like they can sing or just feel more open to
shout out
worship.
To the ladies. You all have amazing sets of pipes, but I can't. But you sing a song on a Sunday morning. I mean, listen, I don't sing on Sunday mornings to begin with, but when I did used to sing on Sunday mornings, I can't sing when you're singing.
It's usually
I can't match you.
All right, that's the problem. That's the practical side of that is women are usually singing at an octave that's too high for men, and men. Well, pretty much most people in the West today, because we don't 1800s and older, well, before the radio, people could sing. Singing's not really a talent. Like basic singing is kind of learned. You can learn how to basically sing. Now, if you're like what we were talking about last week, Michael Bublé, or like a really good singer, yes, that's a whole talent. But the whole like pitch thing and like, that's because you didn't sing in your house.
Yeah.
If back in the day when you didn't have a radio or a television but you had a piano or a harpsichord or something equivalent, family might sing together at night as a form of entertainment. And so therefore hymns and all that didn't require instruments and people all sang together was much more common. Today, since most people don't sing, and when they do sing, they try to match what they're hearing so that they know they're on pitch. Hence, we get to the man who is hearing. I actually really enjoy our lead female singer. I call her Smiley because she's always got a smile on her face. She's delightful. But yeah, if you're a guy, it's hard to keep match what I'm hearing and sing at 2 octaves or an octave lower and not feel self-conscious. Plus the music's just, anyway, yes, if you're at a modern church meeting and how it's managed, most of the decision making doesn't mean everything is geared towards men, but everything is, men are being accounted for in every decision making.
And the reason why I bring this up is because as upset that I want to be at churches for spending all this money to do all this, again, it's like me being upset with corporations when actually I'm upset with the American consumer. I'm upset with with the church consumer.
Yeah.
You are saying that this is a priority for me. I was like, you could probably get if a church were to sit there and say, all right, we're going to go feed the homeless, or we're going to do this prayer mile walk, you probably have way more people showing up for the prayer mile walk than you have people that are going to show up and donate for the homeless feeding.
Here's my problem with the mile walk. If you really believe in prayer, then do the mile walk and do your standard Easter Sunday with a really powerful Easter message that leads into the miracle of Jesus rising from. Just do that. Just everyone. We're not doing any. Yeah, we'll do our standard donuts. We'll compromise there, but we're not doing any light shows. We're not doing any passion plays. We're not doing any things that are going to try to attract men. We're just doing our standard Sunday, and I want everyone for 2 weeks to walk the campus or whatever, the field or whatever, and pray. And let everyone know I'm not going to do a sermon that teaches about the historical, how Jesus historically can be defended, which is what our pastor did. I'm just going to lean in and tell the crazy story that the men and women were confronted with when they showed up at the tomb and he wasn't there, and then when they first met him. That's the story. And if you really believe in prayer and you believe in spiritual warfare and all that kind of stuff, then lean into it and just tell a simple story. And if no one shows up that day, that's God's will for all the people out there who, all these churches, every one of those churches who's listed here, I'm sure God's will is a big thing and God's got a plan and blah, 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 blah. If you really believe that, then keep it simple, stupid. But lead into things you can control, which is having everybody who's got time and will commit to it. We're all going to commit to this, and we're going to walk and we're going to pray that this Easter will be impactful. But, as much as I love our neighborhood, they did their standard, sideshow Bob thing. And I'm under no illusions. That's the kind of church. It's been that way since I'm there. I understand why. I'm not saying you shouldn't go to these churches, but just, don't have if you find yourself being cynical, then leave. If you understand it and you're okay with that, then deal with it. I mean, there's a method to the madness. But then on top of it, the message that was given was clearly a message to unbelievers, which was, I'm going to give you the historical reason for proving that Jesus is who he was. And look, part one, that's not my message to begin with. Well, one, I appreciate that Forrest was giving a sermon that was not meant for me, who's a believer. So I don't want to make this sound like I went to Easter on Sunday and wanted to hear a message.
He didn't talk about something.
He didn't hear. Yeah, I don't.
He didn't call out the gays.
I've been a believer long enough to know that I don't need to show up on Easter and hear a sermon that speaks to me. So don't hear that when I say this. However, I'm also just my complaint. I do have a complaint though, and I don't find the historical Jesus. I would prefer my pastor not preach the historical Jesus as the thing to preach on Easter. If that resonates with someone, they can go watch a gazillion videos on YouTube. But when we're there and we're celebrating the miracle of life overcoming death, tell that story. Don't tell me the story about how all these people died for Jesus and how statistically it's impossible that this could happen and that could happen and blah, 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 blah. I mean, a lot of those arguments even don't. I mean, Forrest didn't use this argument. The one I hate the most with the logic argument with Jesus is people don't die for a lie. It's like, really? No, people die all the time about over lies. Don't give me that bullshit. That's not an answer for defending Christianity. Humanity is proven time and time again for really bad ideas. They're willing to die for lies. So no. People died for Nazi Germany and communism and Tojo, and you could add a whole other list of that. So anyway, but I know going neighborhood that entire day is pretty much the believers trying to bring in non-believers and get them hoping they'll hear something that scratches their itch and they're going to keep coming. which unfortunately is the other side of that. How do churches gauge that they're successful on Easter Sunday? Well, they track their attendance for the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
And I have literally sat in rooms where that is discussed and that attendance is tracked. And when you see a dip from, let's say, then at the old church, let's say 900 at the old church. That's probably, maybe 900 on a 3-day service. We go from 900 and then we go to 600. And then within a month or 6 weeks, we're back at our normal 450, 475. I guarantee you, there is no we've tracked those numbers, and this is a double-edged sword. We've tracked those numbers, and we've all found them very interesting, and then nothing at all is discussed as to how to explain those numbers.
Yeah.
Which actually, it should be discussed. Maybe it's next time we do Easter, we don't waste all that money and time trying to attract a bunch of people. And if you show up on Sunday and you hear a sermon about how this dude died and somehow rose from the grave, and even the people who'd been following him around for a couple years didn't believe it, proved it to him, like, just keep it simple. And if you have 5 more people show up for that Sunday because they were brought by a family and they hear a message that resonates, it's all you can ask.
Yep.
Because guess what? We're really not bringing people to Christ. So we're spending, what was that number at the top? $25 billion. Now that's on candy and all that other, that's Easter Bunny bullshit. But I would say $1 billion or $2 billion spent by churches on outreach, particularly in the, I don't know about, Catholic Church. You're probably spending, let's say you're a church of, oh boy, what were the numbers? A $2 million budget. Let's say you had an outreach budget of $20,000. No, you're spending a quarter or a third of that. Yeah, well, we did the numbers. Donuts alone cost $3,500, $3,000 to $3,500. So you're probably spending $5,000 just on one day. And to be fair, you're spending that money for twofold. One, it's because it's here's the big question, Colton. What is worse? Or maybe they're both the same. Is spending money to attract people worse? Or is a church spending more money because this is you and I would argue, it's either the most important holiday or the co-equal popular holiday in the Christian church. Is it just as sinful, to use a Christian term, to spend extra money on Easter because it's our biggest celebration in some way?
I think it's just
for ourselves.
I think that they're two heads of the same beast. Like, I think.
So they're both.
Yeah, I think
fightful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. But
as Christians, we should.
But we've all just blindly accepted. We've all just blindly accepted mass marketing tactics as a part of our life.
It's Madison Avenue's just completely taken over the church.
Yeah, we just allowed
or
it.
Or even if you just sat around and we're like, okay, fine, we're not going to do anything.
And we're like blatantly, like, again, when I said some of the things that I said earlier, like, if you were somebody that was like listening to me say that and you were like, like guffawing at what it was that I was saying, like, that's not an uncommon reaction. People don't want to associate that that's really actually what the church is doing. They don't. And like, again, I don't think that like the head pastors are evil people that are just like these money misers that are just like, how do I squeeze the money out of all these people? And they're just sitting there counting gold coin stacks in their back offices that nobody's able to get to. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that and I think that actually the majority of pastors, especially now, are actually victims of, well, that's just how we do things.
Correct. It's classic groupthink.
That's how we do things. They watch another church do it, and they're like, "Oh man, that was so good!" Like blah blah blah, and they bring it in. But actually, what is the purpose behind it? What does it serve? Oh yeah, it's actually to do this, that, and the other, and therefore it equals more money. Because pastors, I do think that pastors don't sit there and think about how much money can I bring in. They think about how much people can I bring in, and therefore that equals more money. They don't sit there and think money first. Now, I could be wrong. You could sit there and push back on me, but I don't.
No,
I think that most pastors.
You're correct. I think you're correct. The majority are thinking about people.
They're thinking about people, but don't
we
forget
have the
that
outliers
people,
that we all know on television who have their own private jets, but they're the statistical gross outlier.
And again, don't forget that people do equate to money, and therefore equate to success, and therefore, I do think that pastors pride themselves on the amount of people that they are able to bring into their church. That is something that they have no problem sharing with people.
Well, that gets to the underlying problem. And this is, you can judge any organization by how they spend money on what they do. So, any good organization should have some sort of a mission, vision, and tell you what that is. And that's from a corporation to a nonprofit. And then, but you always have to judge: are they doing that? Are there actions, and usually that's backed up by money, where they're spending their money.
Mm-hmm.
Do their actions match what their mission and vision is? And I would say a lot of churches are just really blatant about it, and I don't mean blatant like it's a gross goal. I mean blatant like they state up front, like, we're all about growth. We want to grow people. We want to grow members. And it's just assumed they're assuming, well, what's gross about it is there's a wink and a nod about how increase in numbers actually has any correlation to meaningful followers of Jesus. But what they're in, and I think this is the problem with any decent sized church, probably over 200. At the end of the day, what your goal is just bring in more people, and whether or not they're actual Jesus followers, disciples of Jesus or not, is not your problem. And in some cases, you literally, I'm sorry, there's a lot of churches out there where that's literally not your problem. There are a lot of churches out there where it's basically Sunday. Everything is geared towards being in church together. That's not bringing up disciples. That's just a bunch of people jawboning each other, talking to each other. And I mean, well, I can't say that. I had a phrase in my mind, but I won't say it. That's even too far for this podcast. But that's not accurate. That's not what it's supposed to be. And so I would say most churches we're in the business of growing, and which is, I think, neighborhood. We're in the business of growing, and we have a systemic problem of trying to turn those people into Jesus followers.
Yeah.
And I think I think where Colton and I, well, I'll speak for myself, where I have a lot of criticism for the modern church, and I do think it's very much like the temple and Samson tearing. I think it's an institute. The way we do church now needs to be torn down and done away with. Churches should not be literally corporations. I think right there, it starts corrupting how we do church.
Yeah.
That is, as we've said a million times, that's something that's going to take decades. That'll take a lot of people. Well, it's one of the reasons why I do want to talk about on the show. I hope we're a group of 100 people. I'm hoping 100 people on this who hear this message and can repeat it, can talk to other people. And so there is a lot of discussion going on in Christian circles about how we need to completely rethink the church model. But I do think there's a lot of pastors sitting in this model, and I think they sit up late at night because on the one hand, they have to buy into the increase in numbers model, and they know at the end of the day what they're supposed to be doing is creating disciples. and they either don't know how, or to do that, even worse, to do that is contradictory to the mission of increasing numbers.
Yeah.
And I think really that's the problem. I think the model of your average American church of increasing numbers is contradictory to actually creating disciples. And that's not to say that Christianity is this thing that's just never going to grow. But in order to do, I think we're not providing a message that is meaningfully meeting people where they're at. And we say we believe in the Holy Spirit. We say we believe and we're trusting in God, but we're doing all of these man-made things, including following business model, MBA business programs straight out of Wharton Business School.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, literally straight out of Wharton Business School.
Yeah.
Because that's what we know. We're capitalists. We believe in Madison Avenue. We believe in advertising, but we believe in all these things. We see all the growth that we've seen, and so it just quietly turns into this cancer at best that takes over the church. In fact, is just a.
Well, I mean, listen to, even if when Tim and I talk about our church and we try to explain how healthy of a church and how big, how good of a church it was, we explain how many people went in our town. We're like, oh yeah, 300.
Correct. You're correct.
You know, we're like, oh, at its height, this is how many people were coming. Is that how we should be evaluating our churches? That's how we determine health.
It is. I remember sitting in, this is around 2006, 2007, maybe 2008, sitting in board meetings and everyone, including myself, everyone getting high on their supply of how the church had grown quite a bit. And at some point during that growth period, Brandon, who we've mentioned many times on the show, and at some point we'll have on the show, so hopefully all the listeners can find out how wonderful he is, just pointed out, sorry, but the growth we've experienced is not because we're bringing people to Christ. There's been 3 churches that have imploded in our area, and people are coming here. The growth was from other churches falling apart because of really dumb church splits, which were literally over freaking money, over buying buildings that they had no business building. And I mean, 9 times out of 10, when a church splits, it's over money. The 1 out of 10 times it's over because which is as stupid.
It's over bylaws.
They get over some dumb thing doctrinal that doesn't have anything to do with following Jesus. But 9 times out of 10, yeah, it's bylaws or money, which those two things are intertwined. Because the bylaws dictate who's controlling the money.
Our church splitting would have been again, I love the guy, and Tim knows the whole story, and a couple of you listeners know the whole story. It'd be like if Greg got enough people to sit there and just be like, he didn't talk about this, and therefore it's a problem, and therefore we need a church that speaks out against it, that kind of thing. So yeah, all that.
Actually, that didn't tear our church apart. I'm sure it did. I'm sure a lot of churches struggled with that and had when gay marriage in particular, and then the trans thing, but gay marriage in particular was a huge, huge issue. And I'm sure a lot of pastors were really struggling with, how do I handle this? They're trying to be faithful to what they think the Bible preaches, but also not being this puritanical pastor. And, you got a certain percentage of your church that's just no, this is we want to say we believe in Jesus, but somehow in there we read in there that if, homosexuality is one of those it's not in my Bible, but in some people's Bibles, homosexuality is the unforgivable sin. So,
yep.
God bless you people. I know you. I know where your heart is, but still you're wrong. I think that's about it. We don't need drones and all this other bullshit. That's just over the top.
Just if you're a part of a church, I think asking anytime anything ever happens, what is the purpose behind this, and is there a better use of this for God's kingdom? like, of these funds, of these resources, of these people, is there a better use for this? And I think you should do that with lots of different things, not just the church. But I think so many people have just sat there for so long and just been like, spoon feed me church, like blah, 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 blah. To where, again, a lot of you are shocked by the idea that corporate church, like business strategies have implanted themselves in the church, and consumerism isn't driving the church. Like, you guys have all like people are just like, oh, what? Like, that's so, you've been so far removed from it that you still don't recognize it. And so then what do we need to do to then fix that? Is that you need to recognize that and then start challenging your church and start challenging the people within your church to be like, there's a better way. There's better things that we could be using our money for. And challenge that. And is that the agnostic, or is that the minimalist? Is that the whatever in me? No, I don't. It's about being, you should sit there and say, I'm giving up my money. You should sit there and say, I'm giving up my money to further the mission and vision of Jesus Christ. And so therefore, I have a say in what happens with it. And therefore, I want to say that I want this to accomplish this. I want my money to accomplish this, not to sit there and give me a donut on a fucking Sunday morning. I could go buy my own fucking donut.
Exactly. I mean, when I was running college group, we bought our own donuts.
For how much all of you complain about your fucking tax dollars, you should be complaining about your, I've yet to see many people complain about their fucking tithe dollars. And I mean, like, I have, as somebody who worked for a church, I watch people complain about their tithe dollars, and then you're just like, okay, calm down about what those people were complaining about was they're just like, man, the music's too loud. Like, okay, all right.
Yeah, no,
that's not what I'm talking about.
Don't complain about, but just don't even complain about music. There's nothing biblical about modern music. Has no connection to worship.
They're not playing the Gregorian chant that I love so much.
But we have a mutual friend, Jonathan, who for years terrorized the board and the staff by constantly asking and complaining and constructively complaining. And that's kind of the tricky part. But if you're doing this out of a heart because you feel like your church isn't following the mission vision of the church, which is also in line with the mission vision of Jesus, I think you should know how to constructively complain, not pound not make a big fuss about it, make it about you. But Jonathan went out of his way to continually complain about the amount of resources being spent on missions because we had a big budget. And to be perfectly honest with you, church leadership, and by that I mean like generations of church leadership, had pretty much decided we were going to treat outreach, funding missions as our tithe. And so as long as we get to 10%, we were happy. And I would say that's most churches. And if you want to start by looking at where your church spends money, look there. If you're at a church that's going to do a big old, the drone thing's way over the top. But let's just say you're at a church that are going to do like 50 drones. How much money are we spending on those 50 drones? Oh, we're spending $5,000. How many meals could we buy on Easter Sunday, and instead of having everyone show up in their Sunday best, we all show up. You can still be in your Sunday best. We're going to do 20-minute service, and then we're going to go out and we're going to hand meals out in the neighborhoods we know where people need it.
Well, we got them donuts.
Yeah, we're going to go hand out donuts in the poor neighborhood. Those are the which at the church we were at before, that was one good thing that we did on Christmas morning, where we fed people who were having a hard time financially with a pancake breakfast. And I think it's significant in pretty much any American middle class, upper class family to take time out of Christmas, which by now is pretty much, there are high expectations for how you do Christmas in your house, to spend 2-3 hours, from like 6 a.m. till 10 a.m, 9-10 in the morning, feeding low income, if not homeless people on a Christmas. So
Yep.
And a lot of that stuff, the equipment to do that was donated. And I think a lot of even the ingredient, the pancake mix and all that was donated. So yeah, but don't let your church get away with just cheap marketing, because it's not working. No, very few men are showing up because on a Super Bowl Sunday is the other big one.
Oh man.
Very few men are showing up on a Super Bowl Sunday who aren't involved in church and being like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back to that church because they did a service that was geared towards a TV telecast. And I got something out of the 3 little 5-minute messages that the 4 5-minute passages that each pastor gave. And even though they were interconnected, it was 5 different people speaking to me, and it was sort of strange. So no. In fact, I would say most dudes who already aren't going to church are going to look right through that and say, this is a cheap ploy to get me to come back. And I don't appreciate it.
That's right. And because of it, I'm not fucking coming back. I'm not doing it.
Coming back.
Fuck you. Sorry, Trish. I'm cussing so much.
Jesus wasn't a football fan. All right. Well, I think that's it. I think we killed that. All right. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of the Go to Hell podcast. And actually, yeah. And if you do like drone shows at your church, then you can go to hell. Also, don't need 100,000 eggs dropped on a stadium. That's just weird.
It's crazy. Why dropped?
Just what are we doing?
You're not even hiding it.
Now, if I go to a church and they drop an Easter bunny from a helicopter, hell yeah.
Hell yeah, man.
Hell yeah. Particularly that Easter bunny that was standing there next to...
Does Easter bunny have Jesus strapped?
If it was that strange Easter bunny standing next to Donald Trump yesterday while he was talking about bombing Iran, then bomb that bunny. That was a bad bunny. Bad bunny.
Oh, there we go.
That was bad bunny. His wife looked like she was a hostage, and then they got a bunny standing like, he's talking about obliterating Iran. Crazy. Fun times.